I think the topic is extremely important because it actually, it is a very important area that exposes a major weakness in our system. The story of Pakistan is really a slightly depressing one in this matter because we have a governmentally controlled economy. So private enterprise is very much, to a large degree, hampered. Either the state takes money from them directly, asking them to contribute to floods or contribute, takes it away, and therefore there's not much to go around in the real sense of the word, unless it's religious. So what we have are the lack of foundations in this country. In other private sector societies, successfully organized societies, you have huge funds lying within the system because private sector is very, very active. And it is allowed to be active. There's ease of doing business. In Pakistan, that is not the case. We have a struggle on here between a socialist mindset and a private sector mindset. So you see that in pre-partition, we had a lot of homes set up by the British colonialists, like Lemon's Home in Karachi for the aged. And you had these few that were run by the missionaries, whether they were Protestant or they were Catholic. Then by 1961 came the Social Welfare Ordinance. And with the Social Welfare Ordinance, there was an attempt at registering by governmental control all these societies that were functioning, that were called the Societies Act, under the Societies Registration Act. So they brought in control, and under that control, there were quite a few invasive powers given in that ordinance. Then we got the Social Security Act in 1965, we got the Employees' Old Age Benefit in 1976, and you see a sudden stop. Then in 1982, the world came together, and the first World Assembly took place, and this issue was raised, the agenda for the aged and the various dimensions that are required. This huge mobilization, universal, had a slight impact because in 1983, some private sectors did respond, like Al Mustafa Welfare Society, and set up old homes. They got themselves registered under the Social Welfare Ordinance, and they started work. But then there was again a stoppage. And you see a series of declarations from about 14 international declarations. They start from Vienna, then they go into Montreal, then you have the World Population Plan of Action in 74, you have it in 1982, in 83, 99. There's a plethora right up to 1995. And we have these huge declarations. So you see an international agenda coming to being. And what happens? With that international agenda, there are donor organizations that move into that free world sector. And of course, they are the ones who are supporting. They start giving donations. They start funding all these programs. Pakistan mein kya hota hai? In Pakistan, 1999 mein, we make our first national policy. Then by 2002, we do become signatories to the UN Madrid International Plan of Action, aging 2002. And then it's ratified by General Musharraf's government. We go along, and of course, we find that the paradigm shift from elderly is now moving in Pakistan into senior citizens. Basically, we are trying to adjust it to our cultural thinking, buzurgi ke saath, which is a good move. That was not a bad move at all, because it gave a certain status to that category of citizens. 2004, special package was set up. By 2007, the bureaucracy sitting in Islamabad, and that would, Dr. Shafqat Saab, आपकी जो बात थी उससे जरा से ये पहलू आता है कि जो senior bureaucrats sitting in Islamabad, they had actually drafted a citizens welfare bill, but nobody was listening to them in that sense, because it was a pretty heavy, sensible bill. So I was lucky. They came to me because they knew me from the English-speaking union. And before we knew it, we got heavily into it, because I was then the Minister for Social Welfare and Special Education. We got directly into it. And I began to look at this bill. In the meantime, I had also another group that had come to me on the basis of the Children's Issues Bill. I noticed something which I wish to actually bring to everybody's notice. But first, let me get through this. We prepared the bill, but what I said to them was that all we can do, because we're a caretaker cabinet, we'll prepare the bill and leave it for the elected group that comes in to decide, because we can't take that decision. We're only there for 3 months. So we made it, I made it, we got it finalized, and it was sent to the Ministry of Social Welfare. Then we see comes the 18th Amendment. There's a complete silence in this bill. 18th Amendment आई. And in 18th Amendment, broke it up. We broke it up, we fragmented that thing. We fragmented it, and again, a lot of intrusive powers of government were folded into the law. So we get the KP Senior Citizens Act 2014. We have the Sindh Senior Citizens Welfare Act 2016. We have the Islamabad Capital Territory Senior Citizens Act 2021. We have the Balochistan Senior Citizens Act 3 of 2017, but Punjab is still lagging behind. It still has a bill that has not yet been passed, but there's been news that they are processing this earlier. In the meantime, in 2021, they brought in the parental ordinance, so protection ordinance. That sort of gave certain legal protections that you couldn't be evicted, you couldn't be thrown out, but that has created a lot of confusion in the law, because we never think that if we bring a bill, how will it impact on other issues, which is called cross-referencing. And we are very, very negligent in cross-referencing. So it results in a complicated situation, and that bogs down the law. That's one aspect. But then, what I noticed when I was looking at all these drafts, these models that were being brought, one pattern comes through all the time. And that is, they're only interested in setting up a fund so they can get international funds and attract them. So those provisions are very, very effective. They are full of powers. They can go out and get it from UNDP and from World Bank and Asian Development Bank and say, wahan se funds lana. Accountability nahi hai. Because the audit that is published is only going to go to the government. It's not going to be published in the papers. So in other words, there is no transparency. The funds disappear. They disappear into workshops, into conferences, etc. We don't see it coming down to the people that need it in real terms. So we don't see funds actually set up. And in those laws, it is written that the expenditures of the council that they create, that council's expenditures will also be met by that. So the government's quota or contribution is not specified. It's opaque. The government shall. How much? 1 rupee? 1 million? 10 million? No idea. It depends on the availability of resources. We usually hear that word. So the result is basically trying to get international funds. And then the council is also a very lucrative setup. Through putting up these offices, they are able to give political favors to their favorites, to their political favorites, to their political supporters. Isko chairman bana diya, usko secretary bana diya, usko committee ka head bana diya, usko. The result is political favors are handed out. But what do they actually do? That is what I would like to just point out, because I know time is not there. Let's look at, you were talking about Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. Yes, Islamabad has been given its own setup because of the 18th Amendment. Islamabad Capital Territory has become a territory, provincial government on its own. Therefore, it has its own law. So we start with 2014 Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. Pakhtunkhwa mein kya hai? This is an interesting model. The model is composition of the council in all the acts exist, but they are with heavyweights. With the heavyweight Minister of Social Welfare, Secretary to Government, that is Provincial Secretary, 2 members from the Treasury benches or the opposition, Secretary to Government Health Department, Secretary Planning, Secretary Finance, Secretary Government, Local Government, Secretary Commissioner Peshawar Division, Director Social. You know, these are high-level ex officio posts. When they come in, they don't have time. So what has been the experience in the social welfare department is with all these highfalutin VIPs sitting who have to convene for a quorum, which is half or 1/3, then they are never able to come. The result is meetings are not held because this is never given a priority. These things are not disabled children, not given a priority to that extent. Ministers calling, chief ministers calling, prime ministers calling, they're gone. At the federal level, it's in that problem. And in the provincial level, again, too highfalutin. They should be having a different system. If you look at the structures abroad, they're completely different. They have eminent citizens who are active, who are keen, they're brought in, and they are given the powers to do some work, and they are held accountable. हमारे यहाँ ऐसी कोई चीज नहीं. Nobody wants to be accountable. Everyone wants to give favors, gather money, and then, of course, distribute it to wherever it goes. So we have what we call overloaded councils. And what do they do? Take steps towards introduction of geriatrics as part of the syllabus. Now just try and listen to the sentence. Take steps towards introduction. I mean, exactly what is the implementation? This is just vague. You're going to take a step. You could take 1 step. You could take 2 steps. You could take 10 years to do this. And to introduce geriatrics as part of the syllabus, why did they have to give such a long-falutin thing? Because there's no intention of functioning. They'll have to do planning. They'll have to do database. They'll have to work it out. They'll have to create the syllabus. They don't want to do that. Then you have mobilized financial resources. This is their job of the council. So political favors and go collect money. Coordination with government and international social and welfare organization at the national, but international level to take steps for the welfare, not to actually give the welfare, but to take steps for the welfare. So in other words, there is no legal liability to do things when you get the funds. The legal liability is weak. It is evasive. It is obfuscating. It is vague. The result is it's not, you can't tie it down to something. Therefore, it's open. It's okay. It's fine. There's no implementation. Establish senior citizens' home to accommodate homeless, because this is how you're going to actually justify the funds. Then they have the power in all the 4 acts to have officers and employers. And who are they? Advisors, consultants, experts. And they will give them money on such terms and conditions as may be prescribed. So you've got a huge platoon in the 4 different provinces of experts, of advisors, consultants, experts. They're all loaded onto the international fund that you have received. It's all dissipated. It's defrayed. Whatever money we get is defrayed. And if we don't get it as a grant or a donation, and we get it as a loan, then it becomes part of the debt, circular debt in the end. And we don't see anything on the ground. And this kind of thing says, for instance, in the KP, the fund shall be utilized for the establishment charges. Why? Where's the government? Where's the provincial government? You want to control everything. You have not allowed any real private sector to grow in the right sense of the word. And in this kind of stifled environment, you don't even want to play your role. So what are you doing? These are questions that all the 4 legislations have. I wish actually I didn't know that you would allow a presentation, Dr. Saab. Otherwise, I would have put this on the slide for everybody to see for themselves and work it out. But if I had no idea that you would allow a presentation, next time, any time you do call, I will try and put it up as a presentation for whenever we discuss. Same thing with this act, Sindh. And then Islamabad Territory Act is little more sensible than all the others. It's very much like the KP Act, but there are certain aspects. That reason is because there's an urbanized, aged population of bureaucrats sitting in Islam. You can't play games with them. They know how the game is played. They know the inside out. Therefore, it's very carefully constructed. So it is the one that I found most amusing, in the sense that it's carefully constructed, but they all know there is the game of opaqueness and defrayment of funds and increase in the circular debt. This is what I have noticed in the legislation. And we've got to stop this nonsensical legislation. It's going to kill this country.